Hey everyone, long time no see. I know I've been a little slack in my videos lately. Don't worry, we're still doing our Radical Red low tier draft, but we will be doing our first playoff match hopefully next week, unless my opponent forfeits, and that would have been four forfeits in a row. Hopefully that doesn't happen because I really want to do them. But let's go ahead and talk about something new. National Dex draft. I have never done this before, so this will be really fun. Um, let's go ahead and get started on this. Before we do, though, I do want to go over some stuff about what I'll be discussing in the video. I'm going to talk about the Pokemon Stab, their coverage moves and utility moves. Stab just means if a Pokemon, say a Fire type, uses Ember, the Ember goes from 40 to 60 BP base power. Coverage moves are just moves that help a Pokemon like cover like certain areas of their weaknesses. Like say a Fire type can learn Solar Beam, and it can help like hit water move like water types and ground types that would otherwise hit it for super effective damage. They're not always like that though. Like some Pokemon just get random coverage moves, which is fine. They can still have their uses. And then we have utility. To help save space, I've included both utility and setup. So utilities like Will-O-Wisp or Thunder Wave, it will paralyze or burn. And setup moves are like Swords Dance, Nasty Plot, Calm Mind, just self-boosting moves that typically help out. Really quickly, so halfway through the draft, I think it was like round 7, we got news that there's no Z crystals. Thankfully, I didn't build around the team at that point. I was about to start like picking out a Z crystal abuser, but they said no Z crystals, so I quickly, thankfully, they said that before I was gonna focus on that. All Pokemon must be level 100, so no level 1 cheese. Um, all cut moves are allowed, including Pursuit and Hidden Power. Hidden Power, God, I don't like it. It's a special type move that can be any type, and this means that you can cover like weaknesses that you don't like. If you like Tapu Lele, for example, can learn Hidden Power Steel to hit other fairy types for super effective damage. That's meh. I don't like it personally. It's there. I'm probably gonna use it myself because I kind of have to at this point. But yeah, it's meh. I don't like it. No Moody, evasion boosting moves, or any other game breaking abilities. Hail is banned. Hail has been changed to Snowscape, but for some reason Hail is still coded in Showdown, I guess. I don't know why they didn't just change it. Also, before we get going, I will go ahead and shout out Sleepy Sheepy and Muskrat Jerome. They both helped me greatly on this team building. I had some different plans at the start, but my picks were being sniped, and I was kind of nervous on what else to pick at that point. So they were able to help me from start to finish on providing their picks, their ideas, why we should pick this. We had discussions on maybe what I feel more comfortable with, and they were there to give their opinions as well. And last but not least, shout out to twitch.tv/Ripos. She pretty much pushed me to making these videos. She started streaming very recently, and she wanted me to try it too, but I'm not much of a streamer. The games I play are just not stream friendly. And I also tend not to be very talkative during those games unless I'm with friends. And even then, like if I play Foxhole, 90% of the time I'm alone doing it, just doing my own Logi thing and listening to podcasts or watching YouTube on the side. But I did tell her like I'll give YouTube a try though because I've been wanting to make Pokemon videos. I just didn't know like where to start, when I should start, or I just haven't been pushed to do it. And she pretty much pushed me. She kept telling me just do it. And here we are. We're making videos, and I'm having fun doing them. All right. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the main video, the ones that you've been waiting for. We're going to go over my picks. We're going to start off with the one and only Mega Scizor. Ooh, I was really happy to get Mega Scizor. It has astronomically high attack stat of 150, very high defense stat at 140, and decent, pretty good special defense at 100. This is the first pick I made, so I wanted to build a team around Mega Scizor. I wanted Mega Scizor pretty, even before draft started, I had plans to pick him. He's cheaper than other draft picks. He was only 17 points, and the highest one's like 20 or 22. And so I wanted to pick up him because I just feel like he's really cost effective. He hits really hard. He has the ability Technician, which allows it to, if your base power move is below 60, it boosts that move by 50%. So Bullet Punch goes from 40 to 60 with Stab already, and then 60 to 30 with Technician, so it's a 90 base power priority steel move. That is huge. With that big attack stat, that is amazingly well for Scizor. This thing will just cleave fairy types so easily. It also gets you to stab U-turn. U-turn is very common in national decks because it just pivots galore. Everyone loves to run U-turn. If it can learn U-turn, it's probably running it, honestly. Bug Bite is another move that's boosted by Technician. For a bug move, it can eat the berry as well, which is pretty rare, but it's a nice option. We've talked about this before in my Radical Red when I picked Scyther, but Bug Bite is its best bug stab move to run with. And then Iron Head. Iron Head, I think, is slightly stronger than Bullet Punch at the end of it, but it doesn't move. It doesn't have priority move, so we won't be running it too much. If I do run it, it's because there's like a Psychic Terrain user that I'm worried about, or maybe we do need that extra bit of power just in case. Its coverage moves, it gets close combat, which is amazing because Steel types resist both of its stabs, Bug and Steel. So being able to hit Steel types with close combat is amazingly, it's just amazing. Aerial Ace is its most consistent flying stab. It's boosted by Technician, and it doesn't miss. Now, Dual Wing Beat is also a flying stab that's boosted by Technician, and is slightly stronger, but it has a chance to miss. But it does hit twice if it hits. So that's pretty nice to have. But again, it's 90% accurate, whereas Aerial Ace just hits regardless. So it's a bit of a risky move, but it definitely has a great reward if it's in the right position. And of course we have Knockoff. Knockoff is just super nice to have. Being able to just remove an item for free no matter what is super powerful. Combine that with its incredibly high attack stat, we could easily one-hit KO like Psychic and Ghost types are switching in. Its utility, it gets Swords Dance. A Swords Dance boost will pretty much just win the game. Like, even if you resist it, if you're resisting it and you're getting hit by a Swords Dance boosted Bullet Punch on the Switch, it's probably over for you. Like, it just deals so much damage at that point. Iron Defense is great as well. It boosts its defense by 2 as well. And it can just make this thing impossible to take down. If we're against a heavy physical team, Iron Defense can come in clutch and just win it from there because we can just use Roost, which heals it up as well. Curse is pretty decent. It boosts both attack and defense at the cost of reducing speed, which isn't too bad because, again, we have Bullet Punch. It's going to be our most used move, so we don't have to worry too much about the speed. Its speed stat's already pretty low anyways for Natdex, so we're not losing out on much while getting just only benefits from this move, really. Agility's there. I don't know when I would use it, but it's an option to have. Defog is good to have to remove hazards that could be annoying for other Pokemon on the team or even Scizor itself. Like Stealth Rock, it's neutral to Stealth Rock, but it's still annoying if we're gonna keep switching around. So we're able to remove it. We're also able to remove terrain from it. So if they have like a Psychic Terrain, Defog can remove that and allow Bullet Punch to do its thing. Toxic is there, and Roost. Its only item, obviously, is Scissorite. In order for Scizor to Mega Evolve, it has to be holding this item, so it can't use anything else. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next page here. Dracovish. So Scisor's biggest weakness is fire. Fire types will just melt that thing into the ground. It is bad. It's 4x weak to it. So Dracovish is a pick here to help mitigate that, as Dracovish actually 4x resists fire types. Not only that, but Dracovish hits like a semi-truck. It has its base attack stat is 90. It looks mid because it kind of is, but it gets the ability Strong Jaw and Fishious Rend. So Fishious Rend is a biting move. So Strong Jaw boosts biting moves by 50%. Fishious Rend is a biting stab that only Dracovish and another, I think Arctovish can also learn it, but Fishious Rend will get the Strong Jaw boost, and if Dracovish moves first, it gets another 50% boost to Strong Jaw, including stab. So that is a ton of damage. Even if you resist this thing, it's just gonna be dealing so much damage. Like, if you try switching out, then Strong Jaw Fishious Rend activates again, and then it'll just boost its power up by 50% on the switch. And whoever's coming in is not gonna like that. You pretty much have to 4x resist it, or have a Water Absorb user. It gets Dragon Claw, Outrage, Dragon Rush. Dragon Rush is a 100 base power dragon move that hits hard, but it has a 75% accuracy to it, which kind of sucks. So Dragon Claw is probably the preferred move. Its coverage move is Earthquake, Psychic Fangs, Leech Life, Crunch, and Iron Head. Leech Life is great on Dracovish because grass types do resist its water stabs. So we can use Leech Life on like a switch. Like, say if they're throwing an Ogerpon, Ogerpon Wellspring, we can just Leech Life and it just dies instantly because Leech Life is boosted by Strong Jaw while also healing Dracovish. Its typical items are Choice Scarf and Choice Band with Life Orb. So Choice Scarf, again, if Fishious Rend hits first, it gets that extra damage. So Choice Scarf is nice to have. Choice Band if we're against slower teams. We can just whack it even harder with Choice Band, Fishiest Rend, Strong Draw, and of course Life Orb. Life Orb does 30% extra damage, but it does sap away some health. That's if it's used, but it allows it to use multiple moves as well. Whereas the other two items restrict you to using one move. But we only care about that one move, which is Fishiest Rend. So let's go ahead. Now, Dracofish's biggest issue is Fairy and Dragon types. Dragon type, both of which Scizor can deal with, but the problem is that a lot of Dragon types learn Fire coverage, which Scizor does not like to deal with. Fairy types Scizor can typically deal with, but again, hidden powers in the game, so we have to be careful about that as well. So to help mitigate the Dragon typing at least, we went with Clefable as our third pick. This thing has a lot. It has a ton of coverage moves, a ton of utility, items. I'm probably missing like 4 more items. I'm not gonna lie. There was so many items to type up here. Its stats are pretty okay. It's pretty mid. Well, it wasn't not mid. If you see green, it's pretty nice. So HP, special attack, and special defense are its greatest here. It gets 2 really good abilities in Magic Guard and Unaware. So both of these abilities are actually super great in singles draft. Magic Guard prevents Clefable from getting hit, from like taking damage from non-damage hitting moves. So like Toxic won't do anything to it. Stealth Rocks and Hazards won't do anything to it. Unaware is another really good move. If you have a boosting heavy team, Clefable will not care. It will just sit there under your plus 45 Volcarona that spend Quiver Dance and Calm Minds, whatever. It won't care about that. It will just sit there and it'll treat it like it never got boosted to begin with, and it allows it to do its own thing. Its best stab moves is Moonblast and Draining Kiss. So Draining Kiss is a pretty weak fairy move, but it heals for 75% of the damage dealt. So if we're against like a heavy fighting dark team and we use Draining Kiss, it's a 50 base power move, but it could heal a lot for the super effective damage. Coverage, again, a lot. It's Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Magical Leaf, Psychic, Psyshock, Shadow Ball, Knockoff, and Meteor Beam. Steel type starting it, no worries, Flamethrower. Poison type starting it, no worries, a Psychic or Psyshock. Thunderbolt's grid. It also gets Thunder as well. So Thunder under this team is going to be great. You'll see here in, I think, next slide. Utility, Calm Mind. So Clefable is capable of doing a lot of things here. It can go offensive with Calm Mind, Moonblast, a coverage move and healing move. Or it can go utility, where we can just use Encore, Stealth Rock, Trick, Screens, Teleport Wish. Teleport Wish is huge to have. It allows, we use Wish, and then we use Teleport on the next turn, and then whoever we switch to will get the Wish proc. So say Scizor takes a lot of damage, like it's just been fighting everything, but it's taking too much damage, and I won't be able to get Roost off for it. No worries, we can just use Teleport Wish, Clefable. Heal Bell is also really nice, because Heal Bell gets rid of all status moves, so like if Scizor or Dracovish get burnt, they're almost out of the game completely. They still do mid damage at that point, because their their attacking pressure is just so high. But we don't want them burned regardless. So Heal Bell can get rid of that. And Healing Wish is pretty much Wish and Heal Bell at the same time, except Clefable dies instantly after using it. So if Scizor is burnt and has no health, Healing Wish will pretty much sacrifice Clefable, and then we switch Scizor in, and Scizor is not only fully healed, but the burn is also gone. So that's pretty nice to have in events that I need to use it to help keep Scizor going. But yeah, it's items. Like I said, there's a lot of items here. Sticky Barb is there because if you use Knockoff on a Pokemon and it hits you back, Sticky Barb will transfer to them and deal consistent damage. Rocky Helmet's nice. Light Clay for screens. Heavy Duty Boots. If we're guarding a Unaware set, we can go Heavy Duty Boots and we might be able to throw them off. Like, is he Magic Guard or Unaware? I'm going to set up on the Unaware Pokemon and not even realize it until it's too late. Choice Scarf is there for tricking. If we can use Trick on a utility Pokemon, a utility heavy Pokemon, we can just get them out of the game quickly with that, and then Clefable can fire off its Stab, Moonblast, or Coverage Flamethrower, depending on what we're up against. Leftovers is pretty common too, just giving it that extra passive recovery. It has a decent health stat, so that's pretty nice to have. Life Orb under Magic Guard is actually really nice because Life Orb will still work with the 30% damage boost to Clefable, but without getting hit with recoil damage. So that's pretty good to have. If we're going Battle Clefable, we can go like Calm Mind and Life Orb, and then just go crazy with Moonblast and coverage moves. Alright, let's go on to our fourth pick here. Politoed. So Politoed helps the first two picks out really well. It gets a really powerful ability called Drizzle, which summons rain for 4 turns, and it's 7 if we have Damp Rock. And not only that, but it's also it's a bulky water type on the special side, and it could be defensively bulky as well if we invest right. And it also hits pretty okay under rain because rain boosts water moves by 50%. Combine that with stab, so Scald here can do a lot of damage. Weather Ball does more damage than Scald, but rain has to be active. So in the event that they might be like trying to override rain with whatever else they have, but you got to be careful about that. But it is a very solid option to have if needed. Its coverage, it gets Earth Power, Psychic, Ice Beam, Focus Blast, and Hyper Voice. Hyper Voice isn't really a coverage move. I mean, you'll see why I have it here in a second here when I go over his items, but it is something there to help boost its special attack, and you'll see what I mean in a second here. Let's go over utility really quickly. Perish Song is a move where if I use it, any Pokemon that hurt it, including Politoed, will have a countdown of 3 turns before it faints. So if I'm up against like an annoying setup user that's gonna be like I know it's gonna set up something, I can just use Perish Song, and now it has 3 turns to either finish off my team, which it probably won't be able to do because of how bulky everyone here is, or it's forced to switch out, which gives me the momentum to do my own thing. Icy Wind is here too. Icy Wind actually does deal a low amount of damage, and it's guaranteed to slow down Pokemon as well. So that's why I have it in the utility slot. Like, yeah, it does damage, but you don't really use it for the damage. You use it for the slow proc. Haze gets rid of any boost that's done on the field. So if I'm against like a water type that boosted its attack stats, I can just use Haze. Whirlpool is great for trapping Pokemon with Perish Song. So Whirlpool Perish Song is a strat we can utilize. We keep them in, and then they try desperately to kill Politoed. But Politoed being bulky, it should be just fine. And then we can switch out Politoed as they just crumble to Perish Song. Toxic, Encore, Rest, and Sleep Talk. Toxic is great on Politoed because again, it's a special bulky Pokemon that we can use with Toxic and just whittle down our opponents. Like if they bring Chansey or Blissey, we can just use Toxic on them, and then Whirlpool, and then they have to sit there and just take it. Its items. Damp Rock is pretty much the most common one. Damp Rock increases rain from 4 to 7 turns, so that's really nice for Dracovish and Scizor. Eject button is also there, so if I bring it in, Drizzle will proc, and if I bring Politoed in on a switch, then it gets hit by that switch by that move, and then it'll eject button out, meaning it'll just go back and I switch out someone else. So that's pretty good for like pretty much poor man's U-turn. I can only do it once, but it's there. Life Orb is also there against Scald under Rain. It does a lot of damage with its okay-ish special attack. But Life Orb can just increase that damage by 30%, allowing even more damage. You know, we can never say no to more damage, right? Throat Spray is there for Hyper Voice only. It's really niche. I don't even know when I would do this, but it's a niche way of boosting its special attack by 50% and then allowing it to be more of a Battletoad. But it is so niche, I don't know when I would use it, honestly. It's just there because I thought it was funny that it gets that. And Leftovers. Leftovers is probably not going to be coming much, honestly. It doesn't really need it. Like, we don't really typically want Politoed out on the field. We typically just want it for its Drizzle and to be, like, just a utility annoying Pokemon if it has to sit out. But, yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about our 5th pick, Rillaboom. So, Rillaboom has a lot going for it. Sorry about that. I had to take a drink of water there. My throat was getting dry. It has really good stats. Its HP stat is pretty high. Its attack stat is really good at 125. Defense stat is 90. And honestly, its special defense isn't too bad. We can always patch it up with Assault Vest. We'll go over that later. Its speed stat is pretty low, but we can override that with Grassy Glide. We'll talk about that in a second here. Let's talk about its ability, Grassy Surge. Grassy Surge is extremely good with Rillaboom. Grassy Surge summons Grassy Terrain for 4 turns, 7 if we have Terrain Extender, and it boosts the Grass type moves as well by I think 20% or 30%. I think it's 20%, because at one point when the Terrains first came out, they were very overbearing, so they nerfed all of them. But yeah, it does a lot. It helps Rillaboom as well, like keep it in the game. Not just Rillaboom itself, but other Pokemon that are grounded. If you're using a grounded Pokemon on grassy terrain, it heals them for a certain amount. Its stab moves is Grassy Glide, Wood Hammer, Drum Beating, and Bullet Seed. Really, really powerful grass moves from Rillaboom here. Grassy Glide under Grassy Terrain gives it priority grass move. So its speed stat is essentially not there anymore because it's just going to move first regardless now. So that's super nice to have. Wood Hammer under Grassy Terrain does a ton of damage. It will just hit really, really, really hard. But the problem is that it also recoils. It's pretty much Flare Blitz for grass type, so it'll recoil for like 33% damage. So we gotta be really 33% of the damage dealt. So we gotta be pretty careful about like whacking a high health mon with a Wood Hammer, or Rillaboom could just die with it. Drum Beating is a signature move that only Rillaboom can learn. It gives it it's an 80 base power move that will slow. That guarantees a slow. It's like grass type, physical grass type icy wind, but it's actually pretty high on the damage, especially under grassy terrain. And Bullet Seed. Now Bullet Seed is a pretty interesting strat because it can deal it can deal pretty much like the same damage as Wood Hammer without the drawback of losing all that health under grassy terrain, and we can pair it up with loaded dice to pretty much guarantee 4 hits. So that's really nice to have if we have like a Focus Sash user, or if we just don't want to take so much Wood Hammer health recoil. Its coverage moves, knock off, Drain Punch is great in tandem with Grassy Terrain because it heals Rillaboom for like a certain amount of damage dealt, along with Grassy Terrain healing it as well. So we can be like kind of like a drain tank almost. Brick Break for screens. Low Kick is there for heavy steel type mons that might be annoying that Drain Punch can't hit really well. And high horsepower. So the thing about Grassy Terrain is that Grassy Terrain actually reduces the power of Earthquake and Earth Power, two of the most common ground coverage moves in singles. But it does not do that for high horsepower, which is also a ground move. It ignores that and it deals 95 base power damage, so 5 less than Earthquake, but it's still pretty nice to have. So that's good because again, under grassy terrain, Earthquake would just not work as well. It would not hit as hard. And of course, U-turn. Again, if you have U-turn in singles, that's always great to have. It's always a plus. It does not have a way of hitting other grass types really well, but U-turn can hit grass types really hard with its attack stat. Its utility, we don't really use this for utility, honestly. It gets Swords Dance to bulk up and Leech Seed, and that's it. That's like the only 3 moves we care about for utility-wise. Leech Seed, I don't even know when I would use Leech Seed. Maybe if I was like being a troll and when a majority of my games I'm just doing stupid things and I use Leech Seed U-turn into grassy terrains, Mega Scizor with the Leech Seed. I don't know. It's just there. I just threw it on there because I was like, oh, screw it. Maybe we can find a use for it, but yeah, we would prefer just being all out offensive. Its items. It has no shortage of items, that's for sure. Choice Band, a Life Orb, Terrain Extender, Loaded Dice, Miracle Seed, Grassy Seed. Grassy Seed, raises the defense by 50% on a grassy terrain. It's a one-time use though. Assault Vest is there to patch up its lower special defense, pretty much making it really like Assault Vest combined with Drain Punch can make this thing really hard to take down. And since it's just a pure attacking Pokemon, we can easily forego like Swords that's a bulk up and still do a lot of damage just with its base attack stat alone. And of course, leftovers. Leftovers under grassy terrain equals big healing. We could even mitigate some Wood Hammer damage. Not all of it, but we can mitigate a decent amount-ish. It really depends. But yeah, so now that we have our grass pick out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to our 6th pick, which is Talonflame. Now, fire types, there are certain fire types that can work under rain. Talonflame is one of them. So Talonflame is pretty much poor man's Moltres. Unfortunately, Moltres was taken, but that's fine. We have Talonflame here that can do similar things. It doesn't have the greatest stats, but it has a really high attacks. It has a really high speed stat of 126. That's just really nice to have. It also can utilize its flying stab, Hurricane, in the rain because Hurricane gets accuracy bonus of 100% under rain. It pretty much can't miss. And its abilities are. It has 2 pretty good draft abilities. One of them's really good, and the other one's kind of. It's there. It's okay. It's Flame Body and Gale Wings. Flame Body has a 30% chance to burn if you're physically hitting it. So if we're against a heavy physical team, they got to be careful about Flame Body because that's a 30% chance. If you use like a multi-hit move on Talonflame, you have a pretty high chance of getting burned, and then that physical attacker's out of the game. Its utility is Will-O-Wisp, Defog, Taunt, Rain Dance, Tailwind, Roost, and Swords Dance. So Rain Dance is nice to have here in case Polytoad goes down sooner than I wanted to, or if I suspect there's going to be like a weather war going on. We can have a fast Rain Dance setter. So that's pretty nice to have for Dracovish and Scizor for later. Tailwind is something that's not really used in singles, but it is an option because again, if Dracovish can move first with Fishious Rent, it gets that extra 50% damage boost if it moves first. So that's pretty nice to have. It is an option. I don't know when I would bring it much, but it's there to keep people on their toes, you know. Sorry, if anytime I go silent like that, it just means I'm taking a drink of water. I'm talking a lot, so my throat is drying up here. Its items are typically just heavy duty boots. Stealth rocks will destroy this thing, so heavy duty boots is common. It also works with Gale Wings because Gale Wings you have to be full health for Gale Wings to work. And what Gale Wings does is it prioritizes flying moves. So Brave Bird, Acrobatics, Defog, Tailwind will always move first if it has full health. But yeah, Flame Body is probably going to be a more common one, but like I said, Gale Wings is still a pretty decent ability to have depending on the situation and matchup. Alright, let's move on to our 7th pick, Heliolisk. So, I must have went through like 4 different electric types before I finally settled on Heliolisk. Originally it was going to be Raikou, but Raikou was pretty pricey. And then I decided maybe Thunderous Therian. Thunderous Therian has a massive special attack out of 145, and I was kind of lacking a special attacker at this point. Like the best one was Clefable at like 95. I wanted something a little stronger. So it came down to Jolteon and Heliolisk. Now Jolteon was actually, I think it was a point more expensive. So, but that's not the main reason why I didn't pick him. The biggest reason why I picked Heliolisk is actually a few compared to Jolteon. So let's go over its stats really quick. Special attack 109, special defense 94, speed 109. Its defensive stats suck. If this thing gets hit by close combat, it just dies instantly. There's nothing I can do about that. But it gets Dry Skin as an ability. So Dry Skin under Rain is pretty much like a free leftovers. So Dry Skin under Rain, under Grassy Terrain is a lot of good healing. So that's pretty nice to have. That's one of the biggest reasons why I picked him. Another big reason why I picked him over Jolteon is because it gets Surf. So an electric type getting Surf, getting water moves that are very reliable is super nice to have because his biggest weaknesses is ground. It cannot hit ground types. So Surf can help mitigate that. It also gets Dragon Pulse, which hits dragon types for coverage. It's another typing that can be annoying to Heliolisk. Dark Pulse is good against ghost and psychic types. Grass Knot is like low kick special grass move. It will annihilate heavy ground and water types, but yeah, that's pretty nice to have. Weather Ball is also there. It's slightly stronger than Surf, but again, the rain has to be active for it to be used. Solar Beam, I honestly debated even putting Solar Beam on here. Solar Beam cannot work in the rain. I mean, it can, but it's like reduced damage and it takes a turn. But it's there in case maybe I'm against a fire team, and I suspect it's going to be him having the advantage of bringing out the fire types. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. And it gets U-turn. U-turn's nice to have because it can pivot out. You cannot block U-turn. Like, no type in the game is immune to U-turn, so you can just U-turn out. Pretty much guaranteed. If there's like a suspicion that there's going to be like a really threatening type to it. Utility, it gets Glare. Glare is pretty much the spore version of Paralysis. It allows it to hit any non-electric type with a guaranteed paralyze. It's 100% accurate, so that's really nice to have. Eerie Impulse will reduce the special attack by 2. So if there's someone switching in on Heliolisk and I predict it, I can reduce their special attack by 2 and just do it again. Because now they're even more weak, and then we can do our own thing. We can set like Substitute and go just be threatening from that point. Its items, its most common item is Life Orb. Unfortunately, Heliolisk does not get any boosting move right away. Like, it doesn't get Calm Mind or Nasty Plot. But it does, we can, so that's why we just utilize Life Orbs. Choice Specs is there, Choice Scarf. Throat Spray is so Stab, it gets Stab Hyper Voice. So if you use Stab Hyper Voice with Throat Spray, which is what I need right now because I'm talking so much, but if you use that, it increases its special attack by 50%. That's just very much its only way of boosting its special attack. So that's pretty nice to have. And Hyper Voice is a stab, so it's going to deal good damage regardless. And then Air Balloon, just to be hovering above the battlefield, because ground types will hit it for super effective damage. Weather Balloon pretty much makes it go from 2 weaknesses down to 1. If it gets hit once, though, the Air Balloon pops, but at that point, it shouldn't really matter, because we can just, if it's a ground type trying to take it down, we can just surf it. We can just drown it to death pretty much. Our 8th pick is Toxicroak. At this point, I was kind of running out of points ish. I actually had a lot of points at this point. Oh god. But yeah, I wanted to find some really cheap ones to pick up before I got the last Pokemon, which I couldn't believe I got him this late. But we'll talk about that in a few slides here. So Toxicroak, it's pretty mid, not gonna lie. It's a poison fighting type. We needed a grounded poison, and having a fighting type also was kind of missing. So Toxicroak was the best option here. It's pretty much poor man's Okidogi, which is a really powerful poison fighting type. Its attack stat is 106, but everything else is kind of mediocre. Like, it has an okay HP stat. What's pretty cool though is that it also gets dry skin similar to Heliolisk, so it's able to heal up under rain, and we can mitigate its ground weakness with grassy terrain. So grassy terrain and rain together will help keep it in the game longer. Its stab, it gets close combat, drain punch, poison jab, and gunk shot. Gunk shot, it actually hits really hard, but it's 85% accuracy, so it's a high risk, high reward kind of move. Coverage, this thing wants to be a dark type so badly. If Game Freak were to ever add a third typing, God forbid, but if they added like a third typing to Pokemon, it would 100% get dark type. It gets Pursuit, which is great to have. Sucker Punch, Knock Off, Throat Chop, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, Bullet Punch, Stone Edge, Rock Slide, and Earthquake. Bullet Punch is good to have as well, along with the Sucker Punch, because its speed stat is meh. But it gets two okay-ish priority moves. Sucker Punch can threaten Psychic types, which definitely would destroy this thing. Bullet Punch can just be there as simple coverage. Utility, Swords Dance and Bulk Up. It does get Encore and Taunt. And Super Fang. So Super Fang, if they switch a Pokemon on him, and I use Super Fang, they just lost 50% of their health. So what it does is, it deals 50% of the current health that the Pokemon has. So if it has 100%, it's going down to 50%. If it has 50% health, it goes down to 25. So it can never destroy a Pokemon, but it can do a lot of damage to it, and then it can just KO with like Sucker Punch or whatever else we have. Its items, Life Orb is pretty good on it. Choice Scarf is decent. Grassy Seed in tandem with Grassy Terrain will make this thing physically hard to take down, allowing it to maybe use Swords Dance and Bulk Up to set itself up and then just go crazy from there. Black Sludge is leftovers for toxic types. Not toxic types, for leftovers for poison types, so it heals similar to leftovers, but if someone were to use Trick on it and then it takes Black Sludge, that Pokemon that tricked on it is now taking damage from there on out, because if a non-poison user uses Black Sludge, it just loses damage instead of regains it. And of course we have Air Balloon, because ground type's threatening this thing, so Air Balloon is nice to have and forces them to pop it if they're trying to take him down, which allows him to do his own thing, like maybe knock off, encore it. Pretty much just any disruption we can do with it. Maybe set up Swords Dance if it's slightly slower. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to our 9th pick here. Runerigus is our 9th pick. Unfortunately, I mean, it's not bad, but the problem is that it cannot boost its attacking stat whatsoever. So we're kind of forced to deal with maybe Nightshade most of the time. Poltergeist is still good too, but let's go over its stats right quick. It has a very low HP stat of 58, but it has a very high defensive stat of 145 and a pretty decent special defense. But with its low HP stat, it can kind of be abused here. But it's not too bad. It gets an ability called Wandering Spirit, so if it hits you or if you hit it with physically, your ability gets overridden with the Wandering Spirit, which effectively just gets rid of your ability. So that's pretty nice to have, depending on certain situations. Like maybe they have a Sheer Force Pokemon and they hit Runerigus, and then it just loses its Sheer Force ability. Its coverage moves, let's go over its stab really quick. Its stab is Poltergeist, Shadow Claw, Nightshade, Earthquake. Poltergeist does hit pretty hard. It's the hardest hitting physical ghost move that it has. But due to the fact that it can't boost its own attack, and Nightshade might come in more handy. It really depends. Like Nightshade does a consistent 100 base damage because it does damage based on your level and level 100. So that's pretty good to have just in case like Poltergeist and Shadow Claw can't do anything. And it gets Earthquake, but Earthquake under Grassy Terrain is reduced damage. Unfortunately, it does not get any other... I think it gets Stomping Tantrum, but yeah, I was kind of sad that it doesn't get other heavy-hitting ground moves. Its coverage is pretty low. Rock Slide, Stone Edge, and Body Press. Body Press does damage equal to how much defense... equals damage to how much your defense stat is. So a high defense stat and body press, it can chunk dark types and fighting types pretty easy, especially on the switch. If they switch a dark type, you just body press it, and essentially maybe even KO it because its defensive stat is still pretty high. Its utility is where it really shines though. It gets Stealth Rock and Toxic Spikes. Um, Destiny Bond is there too, to like maybe take down another opposing Pokemon. Will-O-Wisp is there to burn. Toxic, Disable. Memento is a move that reduces special attack and attack by 2, but it kills itself in the process. So if I use this, it means like, oh, I've already done my job. I'm just gonna Memento and bring out my own heavy hitter and set that one up. It does get Curse, which is Poor Man's Toxic. In the event that I cannot break a certain substitute Pokemon, I can just use Curse and now put it on a little bit of a timer. And an ID is Iron Defense. I ran out of room, so I just abbreviated it. Iron Defense increases its defense stat by 2, which is already crazy to begin with. So if we're up against a very physical heavy team, we can just go Leftovers, Iron Defense, Body Press, and just absolutely sit on Pokemon. Its items, as I mentioned, Leftovers, Rocky Helmet, Heavy Duty Boots. Not much going for it. This is a pretty low priced Pokemon, honestly, but I did need a Ground type and a Ghost type, so it just fitted well with the points that I had, so I went with him. I mean, he's not too bad. Like, he's way more utility focused, but that's all he can really be. But he can still be a little bit of a threat with its Body Press defensive strats and stuff. Our final pick, I couldn't believe I got this guy this late. I really needed a special wall breaker because I have some special hitters, but nothing like super scary. And that's where Darkrai comes in. Darkrai is really, really powerful on the special side, while still having a mid attacking stat, allowing it to use Sucker Punch and Knock Off in Pursuit, at least. It's pretty bulky. Well, it's not too bulky, but it has respectable bulk. Due to its extremely high special attack at 135 and speed at 125, we can invest a lot in our bulk. So that's pretty nice to have. Its ability, though, it's kind of useless, I'm not going to lie. Bad Dreams. It only works if the other Pokemon's asleep, and I have no sleep setters on this team except for Darkrai. But it's only sleeping. Its best sleeping move is a 60% accurate move, so it's extremely high risk with high reward. Because if I could get someone to fall asleep, they take damage, and I can like set up Nasty Plot and go crazy from there. But it's very, very, very risky. But it's an option. Its strongest stab move is Dark Pulse. Unfortunately, there is no other stronger move it has on the special side for its stab. Like, it doesn't get Stab, Dark, Draco, Meteor. That'd be pretty nice to have, but it'd be a little over the top for him. It does get a lot of coverage moves, so Thunderbolt, Thunder, Ice Beam, Sludge Bomb for fairies, Spatial Rend. I have this. I was laughing at this because I completely forgot about this, but back in Generation 4, it had an event where it learned War of Time, Spatial Rend, and at the time it was only Giratina could use this move. It was Phantom. It was some kind of, I forgot what it was called, but it was like a ghost move. But yeah, Spatial Rend is a Dragon type that has a high chance to crit. It's actually not too bad of a coverage move. If I was against like a Water Dragon type like Kingdra or Tatsugiri, I guess Tatsugiri wouldn't matter because it's so weak. But Kingdra, you can use Special Rend on it. I have one of the strongest Water Dragons already, so I don't have to worry about that. But yeah, it's an option to have. Psychic Psyshock is great on Darkrai because it's Psyshock is a move that hits. It's a special type move that hits the defense stat instead. So if you try throwing Chansey or Blissey on this thing, two Pokemon that are just big special tanks, it won't matter. We just use Psyshock. We use Nasty Plot Psyshock and they just explode. And of course we have Focus Blast, aka Focus Miss. It's a fighting coverage. It's something at least. Utility in Nasty Plot. If this thing gets Nasty Plot off and I outspeed everyone, the game is over. There's nothing anyone can really do. Unless they have Sash maybe, but if he's full on healthy, the game just it's pretty much over at that point. It doubles its special attack by 2, and it's already pretty high to begin with. Calm Mind is nice to have. We already talked about this with Clefable, but with Calm Mind, it increases its special attack and special defense by 1. It gets Toxic, Hypnosis. Trick is good to have because it's a fast trick. It's a fast trick user, so you can like trick maybe Choice Specs on a physical Mon or Choice Scarf on a utility Mon, rendering them completely useless. It gets Taunt. Fast Taunt is really nice to have because we can taunt It's immune to prankster taunt, so we can like taunt the pranksters, or we can taunt like other Pokemon that are trying to set up Stealth Rock because of how fast it is. And it gets Thunder Wave and Will-O-Wisp. Its items, it has a pretty decent variety of items. Life Orb is just makes it really hard to stop at that point. Increasing all of its moves by 30%, including its stab moves, like its stab physical moves. Focus Sash is great to have. You can use it like Nasty Plot, and then if you get down to Focus Sash range, it won't matter. You just go crazy with your Dark Pulse, +2. Choice Specs to increase its already absurdly high special attack by 50%. Choice Scarf to increase its absurdly high speed stat at 50% as well. Leftovers is pretty decent. It has decent-ish bulk, so it's able to utilize Leftovers in certain situations. Assault Vest increases its special defense by 50% at the cost of using like it can only use like damaging moves, which is fine because Darkrai has a lot of them to go around with. And of course, heavy duty boots. We generally want Darkrai to be as healthy as possible, so trying to avoid all that random chip from hazards would be good if they're having a very hazard heavy team and poor Talonflame can't keep up. But yeah, that's my 10th pick. I do apologize if I got a little ahead of myself at times. My throat was getting really dry after the 5th pick, and I was kind of rushing this a little bit. I need to learn how to. I need to find a program to help edit these videos because these videos are really long. I actually planned this to be even longer. I wanted to go way more in depth on certain Pokemon, but my throat was just not agreeing with it. I was getting dry, so I was kind of speeding it up. So I do apologize about that. I hope I explained it well enough for newer players that are getting into this. That might want to like look at it and figure out try to figure out why I want to like say Rillaboom with this and stuff like that. However, we still have one more thing to go. Let's go over the Warriors of Natdex. Here's everyone. I'm pretty happy with this. Again, shout out to Sleepy Sheepy and Muskrat Jerome for helping me out make this team. They were there from the very start. It was my idea to go Mega Scizor first. I wanted to build a team around Mega Scizor, and I let them know right away, like, hey, I'm going to build something around Mega Scizor. I will be picking Mega Scizor because I'm 9th pick on the board. I'm not going to get Dragapult or Iron Valiant. There's no way. If I do get them, then I'm worried about this entire league. But yeah, so this is pretty great to have. They definitely helped me out here. Originally, I wasn't even going to go Dracovish. I was wanting to go Tapu Fini, but Tapu Fini got picked almost immediately, like right after I picked Mega Scizor. So Dracovish it was, because otherwise I probably would have went like someone else, because I had a bunch of people in the Discord draft I'm in saying that Dracovish is not as good, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I was kind of agreeing with them, like maybe I could see it, but they talked me out of it and pretty much made me get Dracovish, so we'll see how that goes. As far as the checklist goes, we have all of our checklists filled out. Bulky Water, Electric Immunity, Ground Poison, everything here is filled out. Good to go. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of the video. If you stuck around this long, thank you so much. Again, shout outs to Sleepy Sheepy, Muskrat Jerome, and Ripos. They've all pretty much contributed to this in one way or another. So again, thank you everyone for that came out around. I'm going to go ahead and do a power ranking video on Saturday-ish, maybe Friday or Saturday with Muskrat Jerome. We're going to go over my draft league group only, which is called Keldeo. There's 16 coaches, so we might have to do 2 parts. We'll see how that goes. We'll see about Jerome's availability. But yeah, thank you so much, and you guys have a nice one. Bye-bye.